Thank you very much. Thanks everybody for joining us. We're so pleased to have so many of you taking time out of your days to join us. Feel free at any time. I've got the chat screen open on my presentation as well. So if you guys have questions as we go, feel free to drop them in there. We're going to try and keep this tight and make sure that you guys have time at the end to ask any questions as well. So let's go ahead and begin. For those who don't know, I'm with Counts Business Consulting. It's a company my father and I have had for over a decade, and serving as consultants in this industry. And just as you guys know, as we get started, these are the services that we provide. So feel free to reach out to us after the presentation if you have any interest or have any questions about what we provide. But we're always looking to support auto recyclers and growing and improving their business. And so we focus on doing direct point of service, what we call expert on demand services, both in terms of hiring, recruiting, sales coaching, and management, as well as traditional consulting, both with groups or individuals. So as we begin, we're going to focus on sales management today, in particular sales growth management. The outline that we're going to go through is talking about how we assess salespeople and how this dictates our goals, as well as our techniques with the salespeople that we're working with. In the industry right now, most of what we've experienced in working directly with companies or alongside companies is there really is a tremendous lack of effective sales management. We might have sales managers in title. We might have people that are in a position of leadership over sales management. But more often than not, that ends up being a sales maintenance role. We find a lot of time is spent cleaning up after salespeople, correcting salespeople, dealing with issues, whether it be warranty claims or issues with customers, issues between production and sales. Very little of the time of our sales managers in this industry is geared around the professional development or proactive growth of sales on their counter. One of the benefits for us having come or working alongside companies as outsiders, we obviously have the benefit of not having to deal with a lot of those internal problems. Where that's a benefit for us is our only goal in interacting with salespeople and sales managers is to help them achieve growth. We understand there's lots of things that come up throughout a day. There's lots of things that come up throughout a week. But we never want to lose sight on the fact that we are here to grow sales. Our salespeople, our sales professionals are one of the few areas of our company that have great potential to either underachieve or overachieve. They are a huge separator in terms of elite performing companies and companies that are stagnant. As many of you know, good sales solves a lot of problems in any operation. So when we start to work with a team, we begin by assessing the individuals on that team. And we're really trying to see who is engaged and motivated and understanding who's engaged and motivated in trying to grow this company. We see a lot of times it's easy to focus on our worst performers or our newest performers in terms of training and in terms of attention and our efforts that we spend. More often than not, though, I believe the vast majority of our growth comes from either our top-tier salespeople or our mid-tier salespeople and making sure that they're performing and achieving and continuing to grow. As you know, engagement or motivation comes and goes. It's not a forever thing for any salesperson. So even our top performers, this needs to be something that we're managing and we're focusing on and we're drilling in on. Having an engaged sales staff from the top down provides tremendous value for us. So when we start with working with a salesperson, and this is true of any employee in your operation, if you're looking to get change if you're looking to get improved performance out of someone, you can't move them unless they're engaged in the process, unless they're motivated or they have the buy-in to achieve what they're looking for. We're coming to the end of our year here in 2019. This is a great time for you guys to be doing internal assessment on your teams. From the top down, if you interviewed your sales personnel, and even in other departments too, what are their current performance goals and milestones that they want to focus on? What are they keying in on throughout the day, throughout the week, to make sure they're staying on track? How often are they aware of if they're ahead or behind of their current performance goals and milestones? It's always shocking to me when we get to the end of a year and someone we consider to be one of our top salespeople, when I look year over year, they are stagnant or don't have much growth. I expect there to always be growth amongst my best performers, especially when it comes to sales. If it's true that my best salespeople have my best customers and have my best accounts, if those accounts are growing at 10 or 20% a year, and my salesperson is not growing at a commensurate rate, I have a problem. So I want to focus on what they're achieving and where they're growing. It's also important to see, are they growing evenly, or are they becoming complacent in any areas that are important to the company, such as warranty or brokering? Okay. Identifying and determining what barriers these salespeople face to growth is also important. The barriers of someone who's 3 months in are going to be significantly different from an experienced salesperson with a well-developed book of business that's been in the business 10 plus years. That said, each of those sales professionals are going to face barriers to continue to grow. As a business owner or manager, many of you on here are familiar with the feeling of having success, but also feeling like you're reaching your limit in terms of what you can achieve. Yet none of us want to stop or accept that this is where we have to limit ourselves. So when we start realizing we're hitting a ceiling or we're hitting a limit, we want to strategize as owners and managers to see what we can change about our process or what we can change about the dynamics of our business to enable more growth. For many of us, I don't think we spend enough time with our salespeople helping them identify barriers to their growth. Many of them are so focused on keeping up with the day-to-day that they fail to take time to step back and think of strategies or ideas to expand their opportunity or their pipeline to grow further sales. So we want to collaborate with them, we want to engage with them in identifying the steps that they need to take as a professional to continue to grow. Okay, good question. Glenn's asking barriers to growth. So one of the things I look at in terms of barriers to growth, and as well as just engagement of staff, there's good measures to look at. It could be the number of sales calls that they answer. It could be the number of chats or searches that they produce. It could be the number of work orders or quotes that they're generating. I found in talking with sales professionals that are in the neighborhood of, let's say, 180, 200,000 a month, they can get stuck there and they can fail to realize that there's more potential and there's more to be done. And part of that becomes getting them to problem solve. You can only answer 100 phone calls a day, or you could only answer 120, 130 calls a day. So everybody has their limit. But if they're an effective salesperson, they can see that as not an insurmountable barrier. They can say, okay, which of these customers can I transition from phone calls, for example, to text messaging, to email, to a different form of ordering that doesn't consume as much time? You can send 3 to 5 times as many emails or text messages as you can phone calls in a day. So your opportunity to grow, and this is another example, our top salespeople typically take the vast majority of calls to their direct line, okay? So either they have to continue to harvest more sales from the same existing set of customers, which can be difficult to do. They can be at the other person's control there, or they can work on converting those customers out of that pipeline so that they can still have time to answer the general sales queue. The general sales queue is where I would assume new opportunities are going to come for them. Networking and prospecting as well, looking at opportunities to grow their sales with their vendors and with their partners. There's a number of ways that we can look at barriers to growth. Time and phone calls would be the biggest one that I see there. For a mid-tier person, I would say a barrier to growth for them tends to be converting casual or semi-regular customers into their account. Many times their barriers to growth are inconsistent follow-up. They're not as good at solving their customers' problems or anticipating their customers' problems. And because of that, that lack of communication, they're not moving up the chain in terms of that customer's preference and ordering. That would be a mid-tier person's barrier to growth. They're still answering a good mix of general queue as well as direct sales queue calls. A newer person, a lot of their barriers to growth is just feeling confident in understanding the process, understanding the do's and don'ts of their sales counter and their company. Many of them are really just trying to get their feet wet. And so keeping something simple, giving them some simple directives to succeed at, rather than trying to have them learn everything at once, get a solid foundation, and then take steps to continue to grow from there. All right, so sales professionals, you're talking about people that are going to have typically at least 3 years of experience. In some cases, you'll see people really hit top levels faster than that. These are people that are not just focused on numbers, but they're looking to habits or to have certain characteristics. They're looking at their staff, they're looking at their industry, they're looking at this as a career to try and find ways to better themselves and improve, okay? They're not immune to lack of motivation or swings of motivation themselves. This could be from burnout. This could be lack of recognition. As more often than not, most of our time in management is spent dealing with problem children rather than recognizing our best performers. So this is something ongoing that we always want to be engaged in having conversations with our best performers, whether that be in contests or whether that be in setting goals. I want to make sure that what we're doing with them matters, that it has a purpose, it has meaning for them. I love when I set monthly goals for my top performers and they complain to me, oh, why'd you set it so high? And that gives me an opportunity to say, hey, that's based on what you've done the past year and continuing that growth. And two, it's because I believe in you so much. I see the potential, I see the effort. I wouldn't put this out there, I wouldn't set this goal if I didn't believe that you can do it. And so sometimes for our top performers, they need to hear or see that there's more that they can do. And a lot of times they just get so used to performing at a consistent rate, they're not always aware that there's still more that can be done. So the number set for our highly motivated, highly productive salespeople, I'm looking less on a transactional level, although they will have good numbers in terms of 2 to 3 invoices per hour. I really want to measure them in terms of account performance. How many customers do they have that are doing over $10,000 a month with them, that are doing over $5,000? And maybe your benchmarks at your company need to be different. Maybe you need to be tracking how many $20,000 a month customers do you have. And the reason why these numbers matter is because this tends to be how the most productive, successful salespeople manage their day and view their opportunities. They don't get to where they're at just by new transactions necessarily every day. They've built tremendous relationships with customers, and they continue to put themselves in a position to, they call me and give me an order, right? I have an ongoing relationship. I have other things I can talk to them about, whether it be family or whether it be their favorite sports teams or their hobbies. I have a relationship with them, and I provide them a service that goes beyond just the price. We're not worried about just this single transaction anymore. We're worried about the relationship. And so because of that, they're proactive on their callbacks, but they also anticipate their customers' needs. Many times they'll say, they'll call in advance to let them know something is on their way, or if they have platforms like Easy Runner, they're able to use their software to be able to notify their customers efficiently and consistently that something is on their way, not just when it's a problem, but also when the next step is happening. They are looking at ways to grow beyond just answering more calls. They're trying to figure out how they can get more direct orders into their inbox. And they're training their customers on what information they need to send, whether it's the full estimate, whether it's a picture of the VIN number, whether it's a picture of the repair. They are conscious that when they're out in the community, they are always on. They always see an example to develop their network. They always see an opportunity to develop customers. And more often than not, their phone calls are very much unimpressive. The phone calls of highly successful salespeople are incredibly simple, and they focus almost exclusively on providing their customer a solution. Many mid-tier or less experienced salespeople, what you see from them is they're fighting a lot of problems on a phone call that the customer hasn't even brought up, or they're anticipating their customer having an issue with what they're going to offer. Our experienced high-performing salespeople understand that when customers are calling them, they already are placing their trust. They're already looking for them to provide a solution. And so they stay really simple on their phone call. Everything is yes. They assume everything is going to be positive. And when they make an offer, they assume it's going to sell. I rarely ever hear my top salespeople tell me all my customer wants is a price. That is almost always something I hear from our mid-tier and down sales staff. So some of our experience, some of our success with this category, we've been able to, and I know a lot of times when you guys are considering training, when you're considering management, you're really thinking more of your mid-tier and down. But I'm always amazed that we almost always have more room to grow at the top than we do anywhere else in our company. A 10% growth from your best performer equates to how much growth from your bottom three. Just think about it that way. There's plenty of success and there's plenty of directions or advancement to be gained from our top performers. All right, so your average salespeople, your middle of the road on your staff, depending on if you're more collision or mechanical, they're going to be around an invoice and a half to 2.5 invoices per hour. You're going to see more fluctuations for them month to month, whether it's a strong season or not. And they tend to backslide a fair bit. A lot of times they might have a really good month, a record month, and then the following month is just terrible. They can't keep up with the credits. They can't keep up with the issues or concerns that the increased volume has. And so a lot of times the professional development or the barriers to growth in this case, as Glenn was asking about, helping them to develop habits and helping them to develop practices to where when those issues happen, because we all know they will. Every company has a set credit rate, more or less. When you sell more, you know you're going to have the same percentage of credits or issues that come up. So what do you put in place in terms of starting your day, in terms of ending your day, in terms of how you take notes or how you stay organized what are those professional habits that you have to ensure that your customers are going to get the best service from you, regardless of how busy or regardless of how difficult your day is? Now, for these salespeople, they are highly motivated by sales contests. You can push their buttons by giving them certain goals, and whether that be numeric goals like I want you to sell 2 warranties a day, or I want you to sell 3 warranties a day. A lot of times with them, it's more effective to focus on an activity number than it is a dollar amount. You're looking to develop habits. You're looking to develop routine and get things to be habitual for them, more so than opening their eyes to a whole new thing that they've never done before. The other side to this is there can be some inconsistencies for these mid-tier salespeople in terms of what kind of relationships they have with their vendors. They are probably not at the top of the list for many of their partner yards. They might be number 2 or number 3 on the list for partners. And they might not be considering the fact that the person that they're buying from already has a preferred salesperson inside their company. So one thing we strategize with them is, just like the top performers, they need to evaluate their network. They need to evaluate their partnerships. The people that they are buying from, how much business are they getting in response? Many times these are experienced salespeople. They understand how to order and how to take care of things in the industry, but they don't view their partners as allies or customers, right? They're not seeing the effectiveness of that. There other habits that they need to engage in are how many customers are they migrating from the general call queue into their direct line, okay, into their email, into their cell phone. They need to work on their prospecting skills. They need to work on how they can convert this semi-regular once-a-week customer to someone they talk to every day. So we're working on some of those habits of calling out, following up on orders. I'm looking for ways for them to engage with their customers more consistently and in a way that elevates them in the eyes of their customer. So with kind of some mid-tier developing habits, some of the things that we look at would be having contests on the number of brokered parts per day. If we're trying to get this from something we do sometimes or something we do when we don't have it to something we do every day, oftentimes measuring the daily activity and the number of times they're succeeding is far more effective than giving them a dollar goal to chase. And same with warranties. They might be somebody that sells a lot of remands, and so their warranty numbers are really hard to move. But if I start focusing with them on the number of extended warranties that they're selling, the number of warranties they're increasing, that's easier for them to stay focused on. It's easier for them to repeat, and it's easier for them to see the success as well as the rest of the team to see that. We're always more successful when we can break things down into daily habits, into daily controllable amounts, rather than giving end-of-month goals and not helping our staff understand that. All right, so our low tier, our less motivated people, these tend to be anybody that's under an invoice and a half per hour. To me, falls in this category. I would say you will have some motivated people that are falling in this range, but maybe they're just not career-minded, or they're just new, or they haven't moved there yet. If you have a long-term salesperson that falls under these habits or descriptions, then number one, the first thing we have to do is evaluate their compensation plan. Clearly, if they're comfortable with this level of performance and they are continuing to phone it in and hit these numbers, the likelihood that we're going to engage them or get them to grow beyond that without changing their compensation is very low. I wish it wasn't that way. I don't like to lose people. I don't like to necessarily have to threaten or change their pay. But at the same time, we all know what it's like to deal with sales personnel or just any employee that's not motivated or not engaged. You will spend more time and effort trying to change that person if you don't change their compensation plan. If you try and do it through other means, you're going to waste an awful lot of your valuable time and resources to try and impact the change of this person. Now, if it's not a motivational issue, if they are motivated and they're just newer on the greener side and we're looking to grow, then we are really trying to get them to understand the potential of this career, right? To get them beyond just seeing this as a job where I clock in at 8 clock in at 8 and clock out at 5. We want them to see what the habits of career-minded people are. If you have other people on the staff to point to, it's great to demonstrate to them the skills and techniques that those people use to achieve their level of performance. And then we start setting minimum thresholds and minimum benchmarks to try and bring these people up to. It's really important for them, if we're going to keep them engaged, if we're going to keep them motivated, we really key in on one thing at a time, and we really help them see growth. We help them see change. They are the quickest to show some growth and then slide back. So it takes time, but they're people that benefit highly from direct focus in any one area. So first and foremost, it's a lot of this comes down to quotes and keeping good notes and follow-up, okay? Working on their phone skills, asking the right question to understand the needs of their customer, getting them to avoid those habits early on of making assumptions about their customer, and just directly moving towards what they can offer. Understanding that their time is limited, and the goal is not simply to end the sale with a quote. We want to work every call fully as much as we can to start with. So with new people, we've had a lot of good success tiering and helping them grow, getting their feet wet, giving them some simple techniques and skills to work on to improve themselves. And they're really enjoyable to work with. We've also had really good luck. If you guys are looking for assistance in hiring or recruiting sales personnel, we've also had very good luck with those campaigns as well. Now, overall, across the board, while we're engaging with individuals and we're looking to improve their individual performance, this really is about developing a sales culture that has a pulse, okay? I think many companies struggle with developing a good or effective sales culture. And what I mean by that is every day feels the same, whether it's a good day or a bad day. There's not enough recognition of good performance as much as there is anguish or correction of bad performance. It's critical that we engage in regular communication, both encouragement, both motivation, and both challenging with all the people on our staff. Sales is one of the few jobs in our industry where you can't just come in and be a robot. Sales takes a tremendous amount of passion. It takes a tremendous amount of confidence and assertiveness. And a lot of times our personnel need assistance from us to maintain their peak levels of performance. Many of them get in ruts and they have personal issues at home, or they have challenges that until we talk with them, until we work with them, until we engage with them, we're going to have to accept lesser performance, 20% less performance, simply because they can't figure out how to re-engage and get re-motivated in their job. So one of the primary roles of the sales manager is to keep that pulse on everyone. Know who needs to be pushed, know who needs to be encouraged, who needs public attention and affirmation of what they've done. And they need to know that when they have an issue, this is probably the hardest part of sales management, is dealing with the complaints of salespeople. There not a day goes by with any sales team that you won't have some sort of complaint or concern. But the worst thing that can happen for your engaged staff is for them to feel like either their concerns don't matter or no one's really engaged in what they're dealing with. They want to know that the team has their back. They want to perform well, and they want to know that they have support and they have a company behind them that's helping them perform that. So lastly, it gets really easy to avoid dealing with our superstars, and not because we mean to, but because we have so many problems everywhere else. And I think the companies that are the most dynamic and seeing the best growth these days, we spend a lot more energy and a lot more of our conversation talking about how well their best people are doing. And we try to find daily ways to showcase performance for every individual on the team so that it's transparent, it's visible for everyone to see who logged the most work orders today, who invoiced the most amount of sales today. And we think that everyone knows that, but when you send that or when you have that going out to everybody, I think that means a whole lot more. We all set goals. Most companies that are engaged in sales set goals, but we're not always effective in making sure they're relevant to each team member. I don't really enjoy having goals that are across the board for everyone, or contests. I don't like having contests that are just flat across the board for everyone. I would prefer to have contests and goals that are pushing each member at points that are relevant to them, at areas that they're focused on and they're motivated to grow. And to me, commission plans ought to be the same. Ought to be the same way. They should be dynamic and they should be challenging for each of our team members. And so that means different levels of expectations, whether it be off their years of experience or customer base. And I think that's something that needs continual change and tweaking. Unlike most other sales-oriented businesses, we do not change our commission plans near as often as other companies do. And I'm not talking drastic overhauls, but I'm talking goal-oriented changes or minimum-oriented changes, benchmarks like that. Everyone's work needs to matter. Everyone's work needs to be visible. And most importantly, one of the things that burns out your top or best performers more than anything else is watching us tolerate and accept and allow the underperformance or lack of performance from other team members. Now, I don't want them necessarily constantly writing or complaining to other people, but I think it's a great thing for our best performers to want to hold everybody to the same account. Give them opportunities to coach up or train or motivate the rest of the staff. But at the same time, we don't want them to feel as though this company isn't moving forward. It's very important for them that they see everyone is being challenged, everyone is being pushed, and that we have expectations of everybody to increase their performance. Okay, so having a sales culture that is measured, that's relevant, that has accountability to it, and that doesn't just get stale with the sort of things you're looking at. You're looking to change it. You're looking to keep everybody engaged in the contest or what the goals and motivations are, okay? We don't spend enough time on that. And for our sales staff, that is one of the biggest leaks in our industry. If you had to evaluate the number of days where your sales team is lacking engagement or motivation, I think that would be a highly valuable indicator on how well your team is performing. And there's reasons why in our best-selling months, when the phone is ringing, when everybody's engaged, when business is just going crazy, that's why we do so well in those environments, because it's very engaging and it's very energizing to have that. But we know that's not always most of the year. And so who's filling that gap when we're entering, kind of our level months or ones that aren't our peak seasons? What sort of things are we doing to keep our team engaged? What are we doing to keep them growing and seeking new opportunity to keep growth happening going forward? Okay. So we'll stop there. I'll open it up to any questions either through chat, or if you guys have your mics on, if you have anything that you'd like to ask, I'd be more than happy to take any questions. All right. Okay. Well, here's my information on here. You can email me at crcounts@countsbusinessconsulting.com. That's my cell phone number on there as well. I think it's really, really important that we invest and engage our teams. We have dynamic individuals, each with different or unique challenges. And I'd love to hear what you guys' challenges are and if we can be of any assistance in helping you guys overcome any of the barriers you're seeing internally. I know an outside voice can help move things along, but I appreciate everyone taking the time to join us today. We're very honored and pleased to have you with us, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of the day.